Hey everyone, welcome back to Car Flash at the garage, where badge hype gets tossed in the glove box, spec sheet worship gets left at the showroom door, and what we're left with is real world, seat of the pants driving truth. If you're new here, buckle up, because we're about to dive into something that's less about bells and whistles and more about bare bones survival. The return of Pakistan's cult classic, the 2026 Suzuki Mehran. Exterior, yeah, you heard that right. In a world of electrified G-Wagons and AI-assisted Teslas, Suzuki has rolled the dice and brought the Mehran back from the dead, and it's not even trying to hide its unapologetically basic DNA. It's as if Suzuki looked around at all the tech-laden crossovers, the bloated SUVs with massage seats and 40-inch touchscreens, and said, "Nah, we're good." So the question is, does this resurrection of the Mehran make sense in 2026, or is it just nostalgia repackaged in an outdated box? Let's kick things off with what you'll see first at the exterior. And I'll be blunt, if you're expecting sleek lines, LED matrix lighting, or even something remotely close to aerodynamic sculpting, you're barking up the wrong 800cc tree. The front fascia is more evolution than revolution, slightly rounded compared to the old model, but still unmistakably Mehran. You've got halogen reflector headlights, a tiny black plastic grille that looks like it came straight out of 2005, and a lower bumper with the kind of minimalist design you'd expect from a car that costs less than most iPhones. From the side, it's the same old formula: tall roof line, short overhangs, steel wheels with plastic covers, and flat doors that don't pretend to be anything other than doors. No sculpted character lines here. The belt line runs straight as a ruler from front to back, and the side mirrors, manual. Of course, forget blind spot monitoring, you're lucky if you can get them color matched. Move to the rear and, well, you'll find probably the only place Suzuki made a bold move, by 1990s standards. The taillights have grown a bit in size and now wrap slightly into the fenders, with a basic LED strip and higher trims, but don't expect fancy sequential turn signals. The trunk lid still opens manually, and there's no integrated camera unless you take a box for the Tech Edition, which is kind of hilarious, because tech in this car means a single DIN stereo with Bluetooth. So yeah, if you were hoping the Mehran was going to roll out in 2026 with some fresh, edgy stance, it's not happening. But here's the twist: it doesn't need to. This car's entire visual language is simplicity. In a sea of lookalikes of compacts trying way too hard to be sporty, the Mehran is unapologetically basic. It owns it. And somehow, that's a broken bar weirdly refreshing. Interior, hop inside, and the story continues, but this time with a little more nuance. Suzuki has clearly heard the criticism over the years. The dash is no longer a single piece of hard black plastic that looks like it melted in the sun. There's some mild soft touch material on the upper section of the dashboard, and the vents are now circular, not because they look cooler, but probably because they're cheaper to manufacture. The seats, slightly more bolstered than before, and finally adjustable for height and the higher trims. Upholstery is still fabric, naturally, but it doesn't feel like it was sourced from the cheapest bulk supplier in existence. Rear seat space is surprisingly usable, though if you're over 6 feet, you're going to be brushing your knees on the front seat backs. In terms of tech, a broken bar, let's be realistic. You get a tiny monochrome cluster in the bass trim, a basic infotainment screen in the upgraded variant that does support Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but don't get too excited the touch response is slow, and the resolution reminds me of a Nokia 3310. Air conditioning is standard across the lineup, finally, but no climate control. Of course, USB ports, too, count AM, luxury. But you know what, everything is functional. No gimmicks, no buried menace, no learning curve. You sit down, turn the key, yes, it still uses a physical key, and go. And there's something beautifully honest about that. Now let's talk performance. The Mehran is powered by an updated 796cc 3-cylinder engine, essentially a cleaner, more efficient version of the old F8, mated to either a 5-speed manual or an optional AMT, automated manual transmission. Power output, don't laugh, it's around 42 horsepower and 62 Newton meters of torque. But here's the thing, This car weighs under 800 kilograms. It's a feather, which means, in city traffic, it actually moves. It's not quick by any stretch, but it's zippy enough for tight urban streets and crawling rush hour commutes. Handling? Direct. There's no power steering in the base model, and it shows at low speeds. But once you're on the move, it feels surprisingly light on its feet. The turning radius is cartoonishly tight, and the short wheelbase makes U-turns effortless. Brakes are front discs and rear drums predictable and fine for a car this light. Suspension is old-school McPherson up front and leaf spring rear in some trims, which means it's bouncy, but durable. You feel the road, every single bump, and that's not a criticism. Its character. Fuel economy is where the Mehran wins hearts. Suzuki claims up to 21 km/L in ideal conditions, and in our real-world test, with AC on and city traffic, we still manage the respectable 16 to 17 km/L. Combine that with a tiny fuel tank and even smaller maintenance bills, and this car becomes a budget warrior. This isn't about performance thrills, this is about keeping your monthly costs lower than your chai budget. So, how much does this budget mobile cost? Suzuki's starting price for the 2026 Mehran is around PKR 1,849,000 for the Bass VX Trim A, and it goes up to PKR 2,399,000 for the top-tier VXR Plus with AMT, alloy wheels, and the aforementioned Tech Edition pack. And let's be honest, that's a lot of car for not a lot of cash, especially when you consider that the average car import costs significantly more and can be a nightmare to maintain locally. But here's the big question: why bring the Mehran back in 2026? The answer might just be staring us in the face. The automotive world is going electric, going digital, going soft, and in that madness, maybe there's room for a car that's raw, minimal, analog, a car that anyone can drive, fix, and afford. The Mehran doesn't try to be more than it is. It doesn't wear a fake badge of prestige or pretend to be something it's not. It's a tool, a humble, honest, four-wheeled tool for the masses. Of course, this isn't the car for enthusiasts. It's not meant to be. But for first-time buyers, budget-conscious families, ride-hailing drivers, or anyone who just needs to get from point A to B with minimal drama, it makes a solid case for itself. And for all the jokes, all the memes, all the punches it's taken over the years, the Mehran is still standing. So there you have it, the 2026 Suzuki Mehran. It's not fast, it's not fancy, but maybe that's exactly why it works, because sometimes, less really is more. If you enjoyed this no-fluff, real-world review, hit that like button, subscribe to Car Flash, and drop a comment below telling us would you consider buying a Mehran in 2026, or should this relic have stayed in the past? Either way, we'll be back next week with more cars, more honesty, and less hype. Until then, stay grounded and keep driving.